Welcome to Pep Talks with Jeanne. I'm your host, Jeanne Pepper. I started doing Pep Talks as a way to inspire you to do intentional acts of kindness and to further the goals of Blaze It Forward. Since Pep Talks began, it has evolved, and now I use it to interview people actively making a difference in this world through their volunteerism, community service, or careers. My guests are all here because they have dedicated their lives to making this world a better place. Join us as we delve into the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of these truly inspiring and hardworking people. This season, we will be focusing on the quiet superheroes, the thoughtful, kind, and forward-thinking community-minded individuals that teach us about resiliency, abundance, and how we can turn trauma, tragedy, and life challenges into meaningful, intentional action to repair our world. Welcome to another episode of Pep Talks with Jeanne. Welcome back to Pep Talks. We have with us today a distinguished professor from the University of California, Irvine, right here. We're very close to where we're recording today, right across the street, basically. And little did I know that we have the first neurobiology and behavior department in the world here at the University of California, Irvine. And it was started by our guest today, Dr. Jeanne McGaugh, who is also a professor, a researcher, and has been featured on many venues, including 60 Minutes. I know because I saw you on that television show, and it was kind of synchronicity. I happened to have Linda with me. We were sitting in my Tesla charging the car, and I said, Linda, we can watch something on YouTube while we're sitting here. And there happened to be a 60 Minutes episode waiting for me in my queue. And I clicked on it, and lo and behold, it was on memory. I said, Linda, this looks interesting. It's about memory. And then I think she almost fainted because she said, that's my dad. Didn't you know that when you put that on? And I said, no, it you know how they randomly put things in your feed based on what you are looking at. And you know, I like things about science, and so I was really thrilled. I was absolutely thrilled, and I actually remembered seeing you on it when that episode came out many years ago. It was not a new episode, but I don't know when the last time was you were interviewed by 60 Minutes. They probably showed that one over and over again. I wouldn't be surprised.
Probably 2012.
2012, and they're still showing it. You've worked with some really interesting people, too. I mean, on that show, you had an actress by the name of Mary Lou Henner.
Correct.
Yeah, and she is very interesting because I'll let you explain what's so interesting about her.
She's a kick. She is a very interesting person. They wanted to do a show. They found out about the research on these people who have this extraordinary memory. But the producer said, no, we don't want to do that. I know Mary Lou Henner. She has that ability. That there's nothing special about that. And she didn't know how special it was. It all started, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, why not?
It all started with one day I received an email from a woman who said she has a memory problem and she'd like to talk with me. And so I wrote back and I said, you know, I'm a scientist and I'm not a clinician, but I can direct you to a clinician if you have a memory problem. And she said, no, I want to meet you because I don't forget. Well, I've worked all my life on memory and in particular worked on the conditions in the brain that create strong memory. So I thought, well, I'll give away a Saturday morning, you know, not a serious thing. But I said, okay, if you come on a Saturday morning, which is not a work day, I'll talk with you. And I had received at Christmas time a book, a coffee table book, which had a newspaper clippings for every day of the last century. It was available at the turn of the century, and this was 2000, spring of 2000. And I just had that happen on my desk. So she came into my office and she said, she doesn't forget. So I said, well, we'll find out. And so I opened the book and I said, there was a plane crash in San Diego. And before I could finish, she gave me the date, the day of the week, and how many people were killed. Like that. And I would do something, ask on another page, I would give the event, and she would have to tell me the date, or I'd say what happened on this particular day, and she would give me the event. and she was errorless, and I was really amazed and startled. And one of them in particular that was interesting was I asked her the day that the Iranians took over our embassy, and she gave me the date, and I said, "Oh no, that's wrong." And she said, "Oh no, I'm right." And I said, "Look, it's right here in the book." And I read the article. I looked at the date that the article was published, and the date that they took it down was embedded in the article itself, and she was right. We then interrogated her more intensely. On another occasion, we asked her to give us the dates of the last 10 Easters and to tell me what she was doing on those days. And she did. And we checked her diaries that she had kept, and she was accurate, and she's Jewish. So sometimes when I talk about this, I ask people, do you remember the date of the last Easter?
Oh, and if they don't celebrate it, they
Nobody,
might not.
well, even if you celebrate it, who knows what the date of the last Easter is?
Right.
She knew the date of the last 10 Easter. So we knew that we were onto something. And the newspapers, I forget, it was a Canadian newspaper that first got hold of this, and then the whole thing unraveled, and people began to contact us, and we ended up with 6 people who had the ability, and 60 Minutes got hold of it, and they decided to have this program. Mary Lou Henner was included in that batch. So I didn't watch the program. That was on December 19th, 2010. When I say that's what these people can do because they do remember,
right,
I can do it because I've rehearsed that particular day.
Yeah, that's your pitch.
I didn't watch it, but I did record it. So when I got home, I watched it, but I also checked my email, and I had hundreds of emails from people who had to look me up, find my email, and email me to tell me that they had the same ability, and that launched the research then.
Wow. So how many people got a hold of you? Hundreds?
Maybe 200 people that night.
That night. So there are at least 200 people, at least then, 15 years ago, that had this ability.
Well, no, we don't know that.
We don't even know.
There are people who contacted me.
Yeah.
We did screening. I then set up a research program to look at this, and we screened these people by first by test over the telephone or on video, and discovered that not all of them have it. Some people think they have it, and they don't have it at all. We even had one person who was worse than average who claimed that they had the ability. But we did finally, over several years, reduce it to about 100 people verified. And then among those, we had some, let's say about 20 superstars among that bunch, because they're not all of the same level of ability. All of the people that we studied were very, very good, but some were just superb.
Like Mary Lou.
Mary Lou, or her last name was Owen, a violinist in New York City. Among the questions that I asked her, and this was on 60 Minutes, so you can see it, asked her to tell me the days that it rained in New York in January and February in 1990.
Wow. And they can tell you every
and she
day.
Did.
That's
so it's things that you might not think that you would be interested in remembering. Why would you have a reason to remember the days that it rained in New York if you lived there? I mean, but that was being recorded by her in a way that she could call it up.
It was accessible
at the time.
Yeah.
So that's how we got started and all of this. Then we, as I say, we ended up with about 100 people. And we studied them in a variety of ways and discovered they all had an interesting feature. They were all obsessive. They all scored highly on obsessive compulsiveness. So that is the only personal trait that we could see that went along with that.
So every one of these 100 people has some level of OCD?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Wow.
Whether you see it in person or whether it's on a test. We gave tests to everybody. I'll give you an example. I was always the last one to meet with these people when they came. All of the screening took place, and then they would come for me sort of as the exit interview on it. And this is just an example, and one man had a stack of napkins right there on the table in front of him. And I asked them what they were for. He said, oh, I have these because, and he palmed it in his hand. He said, well, you can never tell who's touched these things before. And he palmed it and then went like that. And that's an example of it. Then I began to interview them on that very point. And one of our other main people, Bob Petrella, who's also in Los Angeles, he said, oh, yeah. If I drop my keys, I have to wash them before I can use them. And, they all had some little thing like that, which was an upset. But they also, on objective psychological tests of OCD, they all score highly. So that's one feature of that is
different.
It's co-associated with this ability.
Are the people that have this ability, are they of higher intelligence? Does that ever?
No, it's a full range.
Oh, that's interesting,
well,
too.
we didn't actually give IQ tests, but we knew a lot about how they did in school because they told us. For example, our first subject, who was written about this in her book, so I can speak about it, had really zero interest in school. She went to college but disliked it intensely and was a very average student, but remarkable ability. Bing Crosby, did I mention that to you?
No, you did not.
Well, at one point I asked her, do you know who Bing Crosby was? Now remember, Bing Crosby was a crooner of the 1940s and early 1950s. Yeah. And she said, yes, I know who he was. I said, do you know what happened to him? And she said, yes, he died on a golf course in Spain, and she gave me the place and the date. And I said, well, how old were you when you learned that? She said, oh, my mother was driving me to a soccer game, and I heard it come on over the radio. So what that tells us is that this is something that she was not interested in. It was not central to her skills or interests or whatever, and
happened.
She just picked up that information and she remembered all those details. So there's something about the brains of these people which is truly remarkable.
They're just recording all the time. They can't turn it off.
They're recording, not like a tape recorder, but like a tape recorder that is picking up significant things along the way. So I'm sure if I ask her, what was the color of the dress that you were wearing that day, she'd be unlikely to tell me that. So it's events, significant events, and so on that are key. I say that at the same time that I can tell you we don't really know how it works.
Fascinating. Do they tend to be good at music or good at things that you have to memorize voluminous amounts of information?
Some do and some don't.
So it just depends on their interest level, what they use it for.
Yeah.
But do any of them or a majority of them use this gift for anything professionally or to do anything positive?
Not that we could see.
That's interesting to me that they have this gift and they don't do anything of interest.
I've asked Mary Lou Henner that a number of times, and the answer is it's kind of unrelated. She approaches acting in her own style. That is, she said she studies the part very carefully so she can understand it, and then at the last minute she learns the lines. But the way we all learn lines, I suppose. Yeah. And she didn't seem to relate the two at all. I don't think, I can't remember a single one of these subjects who claimed that it was useful. It was just a very strong ability that in most cases they were kind of proud of, to have this extraordinary ability, but they didn't, and many of them, by the way, asked me, what can I do with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they wanted to know if they
they wanted to know from me what to do with it.
Well, they could be in a sideshow, They they could pretend that they could read people's minds, and they could, because they would know like about anything.
One of
right?
them when he was young, for how you have the school science programs. Well, he had a program in which they would try to trick him into not being able to remember, and they'd ask him all kinds of questions, and he could respond. I saw that on a little movie. A key question that I'm often asked is, do they acquire this ability, or are they born with it? And the evidence we have so far suggests to me that it's something they were born with, that it's genetically, because we can identify the times at which they discovered that they had the ability. See, how would you know that you had the ability?
You wouldn't.
You wouldn't until you're confronted with it in some way, right? It's like, how would you know you're colorblind?
Exactly.
Unless you found out in some way.
Unless you wore your clothes
So
funny.
One of my favorite stories is, and this is Bob Petrella, who's now he's a junior college professor in Los Angeles, said that he was about 13 years old, something like that, talking with his friends, and they were all talking about their past experiences. And he said, "Oh, you remember that time when we were Cub Scouts and we went to Lake so-and-so and we were there for a week and we had all fun doing this?" And all of his friends gave him blank stares. They couldn't remember it at all. And all of a sudden he said, oh, because he remembered it in precise detail. And it was that time, at about 12 or 13, that he had the insight, my memory is different from theirs.
Wow, it took him that long to figure it out,
and I think that's what happens. I think they always have the ability, and sometime they're confronted with some information that causes them to see, yes, I really do have.
Yeah. Can they remember as far back as when they were in utero, or where did the memories begin?
There was a problem there. Some of them claim that they can remember very early on, say in a crib or something of that kind. The problem is that we have videos and we have pictures and so on, so there's a high likelihood they saw pictures of themselves in the crib and all that. So I dismiss that. I don't have any hard evidence that their childhood memory is any better than our childhood memory. We all have an infantile amnesia. That is, we all, despite all the learning that takes place, we have a loss of memory for most of the experiences before the age of 3. It's well known, infantile amnesia. And there are a lot of hypotheses about that. None that I know of are completely explanatory. But I'm convinced that they also have infantile amnesia because the examples they gave to me are highly improbable of, I remember coming out of the womb, or I remember when I was very young drinking my bottle when I was 2 weeks old in my crib and so on. No, I'm sorry. Next story, the next page. Let's go on to that.
Do their siblings or children have these abilities ever? Never.
No. Well, we have no evidence of those we have studied. None has a close relative who has the same ability that we know of, and we have inquired about that. We've done our best to try to figure that out.
That is.
So therein lies a problem. I have collaborators elsewhere, including a collaboration with a group in Switzerland who are doing genetic studies on them. We had the good fortune to have 2 young boys, identical twins, 2 young, well, they were young. They were, I think, 9 years old or 10 years old when I interviewed them. One of whom has the ability and the other one who does not. And they are identical twins.
Wow, that's
so we had to
crazy.
check again to make sure that they were identical twins. So we had genetic testing on them again to make sure. And it's on 60 Minutes, another episode of 60 Minutes.
I'll have to watch that one too.
And so I asked the question of one boy, and I said, when was the last time you did something other? And the one boy started to answer, giving an answer, and his brother, who has the ability, turned to him and said, "Oh, no, that's wrong." So I thought, that'd be hell living with these two kids, one of who had the ability and the other is not. And
even for the parents, though, to have your kid reminding you of things.
Just the nicest kids, though, and very cooperative parents who were, and they provided genetic material, which is being studied now in Switzerland to see if we can get some more insights.
Wow, that is all just so fascinating. So where does that research go from now?
Well, I went to Rome, Italy. That's the first thing I did. I made a step. One of my former postdocs, Patrizia Campolongo, is a professor at the University of Rome, and she is with a research group that has discovered a sizable group of people in Italy who have this ability. And they are looking at the activity of the brains of these people to see if they could identify what's going on with the brains when they are attempting to recall information, to see if there's a difference between normal people and the people who have this ability. And they've made some inroads. There are some differences in the way the brains behave when they're excessive information. And we published one paper together to start that off, and now she's published several more papers. So that's the main activity that's going on at the present time.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, you've ruled out environmental factors because the two twins don't exhibit the same.
Yes.
Probably nothing
yes, I mean,
that's environmentally causing it that you can see.
There's a lot we don't know. But
thank God.
A lot we don't
wouldn't
know.
be fun, would it, to be a researcher?
That was not my major research project. It landed in my lap, and now I have passed it along to Patrizia. It's in her lap too.
Yeah. That came at the end of all of the other research.
That came at the end of everything else. That was not the main act.
But it's something that's very relatable. Because,
it is relatable, and it is highly interesting. And I think that with continued research, we're going to learn something very important. Why is it that these people can't forget?
Well, I also find it interesting because as a sufferer of PTSD, I don't think I could continue living a normal life if I couldn't forget the details of some of the things that I've experienced. They're so painful. I don't know how these people can live in this world with any trauma that they can't forget.
And our first subject was troubled by that. I mean, she was a very, very troubled young lady, and she wrote the book about it, so I can say that.
Yeah.
And that's what she came to me. She wanted help. She didn't want simply to say, I have a strong memory. She wanted me to help her with it, do something about it, which I, of course, was unable to do. But I think she enjoyed the notoriety from all of this, and very pleasant person.
Well, she found a way to make money from it.
You're right. And I got a call from her every year on my birthday, and Mary Lou Henner calls me every year on my birthday.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, that's really nice.
Now, most of my work, by far, it was with laboratory rats and mice. I never get a call from them ever.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
They would have some bad things to say about me. Why did you operate on my brain, for example?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good phone call. That is all super fascinating. Yeah, and I'm curious, like, how all of this plays into research that's ongoing now with, Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer, all of these issues of longevity.
It should play in.
Yeah,
and I
really
don't know. I don't yet
Someday.
know how it will play in, but it should.
Yeah.
Because this is really the reverse of it. It'll also be very interesting to see in the long run if any of these people get demented.
Really interesting.
That would be very interesting because their memories are so strong that wouldn't that be interesting to know?
Fascinating. Yeah. Are they in an ongoing longevity study to see what happens as they age?
No.
That's really a shame.
It is.
I'm sad to hear that. So we need to get somebody that's interested to take up that.
You need to get the federal government to fund it.
Oh, well, that's going to happen like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I see that happening. Well, yeah, as a researcher, you must be very frustrated with what you've seen happening with cuts to research. But yeah, it's apparent. It's apparent. And, but still, there has been so much done, so much research that's been done in such a short period of time. We've just learned so much. And you studied psychology as that's what you got your PhD in. Is that accurate?
Yes, the branch of it at that time it was called physiological psychology.
Oh, okay. So this is a sub. This is more of a research.
It was brain and behavior, but it was in a psychology department. So my PhD was in psychology. Yes.
Yeah. What was your thesis on? What were you studying?
Two things. First, I was working under a group, a very exciting group of two psychologists and one biochemist, working on the question of what goes on in the cortex of a rat, because those are our subjects, which determines their behavior and then later on has some influence on their memory. And the focus was on a particular substance in the brain called acetylcholine, which is a transmitter that influences connections between nerve cells as nerve cells talk to each other. And so what I did was to train animals and study their learning behavior. Then after that, I would sacrifice them, take out their brains, and analyze for a chemical, an enzyme that influences that particular transmitter to see if there's a relationship between that and their previous behavior. And that was part of my thesis, and I got some interesting results. But in the middle of it, or towards the beginning of it, I had another interest. I discovered that there was an earlier paper published that showed there was a drug that could improve the learning ability of rats in an experiment. Given the drug before training, they're trained in a maze to learn. And if this drug was given in certain doses, it would improve the rate that they would learn. It also happened that there's some evidence that this drug worked through the same mechanism that I was studying in the other part of my thesis, worked on acetylcholine. So I thought, well, I will repeat this work of it and expand it, do a more elaborate experiment, and I discovered that I could rather dramatically improve the learning ability by treating rats with this particular drug. And so I used this particular drug, which worked on acetylcholine in the brain, and I administered it to animals every day, and I found that it's dramatically or significantly improved their learning ability. So that was the first part of my thesis. And then I came across an article that had been published a few years earlier that showed that in rats, if they received an electroconvulsive shock shortly after they learned something, that they wouldn't remember. And this supported the idea that memories are not made instantly, but they take a time to become fixed or consolidated after they're initially formed. And was called the consolidation hypothesis. So then I did, which was the most important experiment of my life probably, I said, what if I give this drug after learning rather than before? Maybe I could improve the consolidation or the fixation of this memory. And I did it, and it worked. So what that says is that, and here's an animal that is learning something. The learning is all over with, then I treat it with a drug, and that drug then acts to fix the memory and make it stronger, as long as that drug acts within, let's say, a period of an hour afterwards. And so this was an enhancement of the consolidation or the fixation of memory with a drug. And that launched my career. Nobody had ever done that. I found that, and that became the foundation for all the research I did afterwards.
Okay, a lot to unpack here. I have a lot of questions for you about this. Why did you try the particular drug that you did? Why did you try that?
I tried, the basis of the choice of the drug was that I found a very old experiment, I think it was published in 1917, that showed that this drug that reported that this drug would improve learning in rats if it was administered before they were trained each day. I also found, by going to the library, because that's what we did in those days, there was nothing online, that this drug also appeared to work on the very enzyme that I was working on in my other experiments, the very chemical process I was working in my other experiments. And so then I decided to first repeat sort of the original experiment, and then I got the idea for administering the drug after learning rather than before, so I could influence the processes that are involved in the storage of information. And it worked. As long as I got the drug administered within 15 to 20 minutes after it was learned. So what this did is provided very significant evidence for the hypothesis that when we learn something, the learning is not fixed at the time we say, oh, we've learned that. That just starts the brain on the process of saying, okay, you've acquired it. Now let's try to make it stronger. And you go on doing other things, and the brain is working in their way to do what we call consolidate, to fix that experience a longer period of time. And what I did was to prolong that activity so it could make it stronger by giving it a drug which would affect processes in the brain that influence the storage of that information.
Wow. Okay, why did you try shock treatment to see how that would affect the brain?
Well, later on we did. The initial experiments were done by somebody else at Northwestern University.
Okay.
So then we explored a lot more about how we could manipulate the brain by giving treatments to the brain either before an animal learned something or after an animal learned something, and we found that in a very general way, there's a period of about an hour after we learn something in which the brain is subject to manipulations that can make the memory either stronger or weaker. It's impossible, it is possible to completely block a memory if a powerful treatment is given immediately after learning, that is to create complete amnesia. And I did that in a number of experiments, but what was more interesting is to show that I could create enhancement of the memory if I treated at a particular time shortly after learning in laboratory animals.
This is fascinating. Now, why haven't we developed drugs like the one that you use to influence the mouse memory behavior and learning? Why aren't we using those on humans? Is there a way to explain it without giving it away?
No, it's complicated.
It is complicated, isn't it?
There was a period of time in the pharmaceutical industry, history of pharmaceutical industry, in which they are very interested in memory enhancers. Let's say in the 1980s, 1990s. And every trial that I'm familiar with turned out to be unsuccessful for some reasons. I'll give you one reason. I was consulting with a drug company in Berlin, and they had learned about my experiments, and so they did the same things in their laboratory, and it worked. And then there was a new drug that they had developed, and then they gave it into humans, and it improved their memories, but everybody had a nosebleed.
Okay.
And so
too many side effects.
So they dropped it, right? So there are all kinds of things like that. A lot of it had to do with drug companies wanting to develop proprietary drugs, and they probably didn't work. But beyond that, there's a very important problem. What the drug companies want to do is to give a drug that you can take and I can take and we'll just remember better, right? No, the way these drugs worked in my laboratory is you have to time the administration of the drug to the event. So the animals learn, or we learn something, and the drug comes in, and the drug says, okay, I'm going to make your memory stronger. All right, then that's over with. So it's tied to an event. It's not just a general memory enhancer.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. So if you wanted to remember your wedding better, you might take it right before your wedding.
That's right. Something like that,
Yeah.
you see. And I mean, I wish it were otherwise. I wish you could find a drug, all of a sudden you're better in memory. No.
But it's only going to last for a short period of time.
And the reason for that is that because that's the way the brain works.
It's mysterious.
That's just the way the brain works. The brain stores information, and it takes about an hour for it to do that. You can block it if you want to. If you do something like electroconvulsive shock, will block a memory of a recently informed memory. And what I showed is, yes, you can also get memory enhancement. And there are other drugs that will do that. And a group in Holland did some experiments with humans that actually validated what I had found in laboratory animals. So you can take that to the bank. There's no doubt what we found. Its usefulness is in understanding how the brain works, not in transfer to clinical application.
Well, that's the life of a researcher, and I'm really glad that you walked us through that, because as much as 60 Minutes did a very grandiose, discussion about this, I don't think they really went into what it actually takes and the thought process that goes through making these types of.
It's complicated.
It is complicated. You simplified it so beautifully, and I'm sure if I was one of your students in one of your lectures, there would have been a lot more to it, and there would have been a lot more that you would have explained also. But just as a summary of how you did it was really very beautifully articulated. And
Carol Burnett found out about this, and so she came to see me, and they were thinking of having a program, a series of shows on elderly people and what could be done for elderly people with memory problems and so on. And she had her assistants with her, and they came and sat in my office here at UCI. And she said, have there been any real studies of this in humans? And I told her about the study in Germany, in Berlin. And I said, yeah, they gave it to human subjects at work, but they all had nosebleeds. And I had on my desk Kleenex, which I had to have there because sometimes I would bear bad news to people. And so I had a box of Kleenex there. She reached over, got a Kleenex, stuffed it up her nose like that, and said, well, we'll just have to do this then.
Oh, wow. She was funny as heck.
And then it was very nice because they then invited me and my family to go to it wasn't their last show, but it was a rescheduling of a show, which turned out to be their last show. And then they had a cast party afterwards and so on. So I got to meet all of the people. And then Carol
You
Burnett,
are so lucky. That was one of the best shows on television. Wow. Well, at the time, there weren't as many to choose from, but it was a great show. It was actually wholesome humor. Yeah. Wow. You just taught me so much about memory. It's very interesting. Why is it that there's such a difference between being able to remember long-term and the short-term memory? There's a big difference between the two. Did you figure out why the recording is different?
We have several kinds of memory. We don't just have a memory. We have several kinds. We have skill memory, motor memory, that you can't even talk about except as you observe it. You know, you play tennis, you can't talk about what you do when you play tennis. All you can do is observe what you do, right? And you can't tell your feet and your hands and all of what to do. It just does it because you learn. Or you ride a bicycle. You don't know how you ride a bicycle. You just learn to do it. That's a skill memory, and that's different. And it's different from learning to talk and things like that. So that's motor memory, which is a different kind of learning entirely. We have a very recent memory that allows us to carry on a conversation, and we can all remember quite well what happened in the last 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, something like that. It's pretty veridical for that period of time. And then we have long-term memories, which are different from that, and they are neurobiologically different. So the processes that are underlying your and my ability right now to carry on conversation and remember, I remember what you said, and and you remember what I said. Those processes are very different from your and my memory an hour from now and tomorrow about what went on right now. There are different processes in the brain underlying those, and they're independent, interestingly. Experiments by one of my best friends in Brazil showed very clearly that animals can have long-term memory without having any recent memory at all when they're trained on something, and he worked out the neurobiology of that. I also worked on that problem. So that makes the problem both interesting and also very difficult, because when I say I'm studying memory, wow.
What part?
What does that mean, and how do you do it? So knowing that, and suspecting that all along, I have focused on processes involved in the brain underlying the development of long-term memory. That's been my special work. What is it that goes on? What is the difference between a weak memory and a strong memory of a specific experience, and what goes on in the brain to differentiate and make strong memories of important experiences and weak memories of unimportant experiences? And that's what I really devoted my scientific life to.
Yeah. Does it come down to emotion?
Comes down to emotional arousal, and it comes down to the neurobiological processes that are set in motion by emotional arousal in the context of particular experiences.
Okay. Yeah, I always sense that that's what it was, because at least in my own life, when I think back, it's the emotional things that have happened, whether happy, sad, whatever.
And that is true. And what we have worked on in my laboratory is to find out why that is true.
Oh, that was going to be my next question for you, is have you figured out why that's the memory, why our lives seem to be pieces of emotional stories?
Well, at one level, yes. I would claim, yes, I have, with my laboratory, we have discovered why that is.
Yeah.
Suppose I said to you, which is not true, suppose I said to you, I can't go on with this. I think I should go because I think you're really dumb. This is wasting my time. Okay. Suppose I said that to you.
And I believed you? That would be very upsetting.
I did not warn you. You'd be pretty upset.
I'd be pretty upset.
You would never forget that.
Probably not.
Probably not. You'd never forget that, because I insulted you at your core.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I remember those instances in my life where that's happened.
Did you feel funny?
It didn't feel good, and I usually let the person know why.
Yeah. Well, adrenaline was coursing through your body.
Yeah.
Adrenaline was released.
That's a good thing. That's a good
and that
chemical.
Adrenaline activated a close relative called noradrenaline, or norepinephrine. That's in your brain. So that went up to your brain. The noradrenaline went to a region of your brain. You have two of them, one here, called the amygdala. The amygdala gets excited. It says, something important happened, remember it, and it sends out projections to the region of the brain in which information is being processed, and that information is processed more intensely as a consequence and will remain.
So your amygdala makes that decision.
The amygdala makes that decision through and it projects throughout the brain. So it doesn't matter the kind of thing that you learned. Even if it was a motor skill and you did something very good and different and so on as a motor skill, the brain says, that's great. The amygdala says, that's great. Make a strong memory of that. And then the processes involved throughout the brain will increase the storage of that information. So the amygdala is not a processing unit, it's a modulating unit.
It's an editor.
So you get excited here, adrenaline is released here, The adrenaline activates the release of noradrenaline, norepinephrine in the brain, turns on the amygdala, which projects throughout, says, hold the fort, hold that information. And that's what we have discovered.
Yeah. And in people with the memories, is it the eidetic memory? Is that the way? Yeah. People with these memories that they can remember everything, are their amygdalas different?
We don't know, but we think not, because we've done imaging of their brains, and unfortunately we didn't find what we were looking for there. But remember, those individuals don't remember everything. They remember things that they want to remember.
Oh.
Yeah.
They don't remember everything? The people that have that ability, like
they
Mary
don't.
Lou?
I didn't find a single one that found it was useful in studying.
Okay, so they don't really have a choice. Like, they could want to remember every page of the book they read, but they may not remember it. Their recall may not be there.
Yeah.
But they might remember what time it was when they put the book
and
down.
And the day of the week, and what they wore, and what they had for lunch, and so on.
They can remember things that are not important. Okay, my producer has a question for you. And he wants to know what the difference is between the eidetic memory and photographic memory.
That's a very tough question, because it's not clear that there is strong evidence for either. In the 1930s, there were studies done in Germany of eidetic imagery, which are very impressive, but they haven't been replicated, at least extensively. They would show children a scene of let's say, a storefront, right? And then take the child away from that, and the child had to say, what did they see in the window of that store? And what was important about it is that even if there were things in the store that were in a different language that they didn't use, for example, if they were German children and the objects were named in French, for example, the children would report veridically what they saw, even though they didn't speak French, let's say.
Wow.
So they would hold that information for a few seconds, and for the few seconds, it was virtually identical for that period of time. To my knowledge, those experiments have not been successfully reproduced or extended. If they have been, they're not well known, so that I'm unaware of them.
Yeah.
Some people have referred to that as photographic memory, saying that they remember things exactly as they would looking at a photograph. And the evidence for photographic memory is not strong. Even in the people who have this highly superior autobiographical memory, it's talked about in the way that we talk about it. What did you do yesterday? Oh, first I got up and breakfast, I had the same old thing. Then I know it was a Tuesday, so Tuesday I had to go to class and do this. It's a story. It's a story. It's not a report in terms of micro detail. They don't say that the cereal was a shade of brown, which was 500 microunits. It's not that kind of thing. It's, I had this cereal, and I went to school and did that. I had a fight with my boyfriend, and then I had a flat tire. It's at that level. It's not the price thing, like looking at the details of a picture and then reproducing the details of that over here.
Yeah. Interesting. And every person's different, like the way that they remember things too. Like, have you found a lot of differences in the way that people interpret their memory, or the way that they remember things?
I think there are a lot of things that are common. There are some rules, I think. As we have just discussed, if you get excited about something, you're going to remember it better, and that's true for everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if something is very boring, its likelihood is that you're not going to remember it unless you repeat it a lot of times. That's another way to make things strong, is to repeat them a lot.
Yeah. How does that affect learning, like in a classroom? Like, if the subject is exciting to the person, they'll remember it better because of that?
I think.
What if they hate it? Does that also make them remember it better?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the brain doesn't care. You see, as long as it's excited, up there and says, check that, remember that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So if it's somewhere in the middle, you might not remember it that well long term.
Well, my argument is that you have to get excited about it to some extent, and you can get excited about it because you have inherent interest in it, or you can get excited because you know the midterm is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Lots of reasons, but I mean, look, it's common sense.
Yeah.
If you get excited about it, you're more likely to remember. And the scientific part is what we've worked on in my laboratory. Yes,
you figured out why.
We know why.
You know why. Is that what got you one of your bigger awards? That breakthrough of why?
Sure.
Yeah. So I'd like my audience to understand like how important the work is that you've done and what an interesting person you are outside of your work. Some things that we talked about before we started the interview. You are almost 94 years of age. And from talking to you, I would have to say you're sharp as a tack. I think you're sharper than I am. I know you are. I can tell that you have a better ability to recall and to articulate than I probably can. And you are a little bit older than me. So I'm quite impressed with you. In that regard, you're a woodworker. You're still using power tools in your garage, and you have everything you need there to make furniture. You've made furniture for your home.
And toys.
Toys for your children, your grandchildren. Anything else you've done with the woodworking that we should know about, other than toys and furniture? That's it. That's a lot.
That's enough.
That's plenty.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of it.
A lot of it, though.
Yeah.
This is a lifelong hobby.
Yes.
You also are a singer and you're a musician.
Yes.
And this has been a lifelong passion of yours.
Yes.
Yeah, and are you still singing?
No.
Okay. You're retired from
Yes.
from singing.
Yeah.
And what about, do you still play?
No.
No.
I retired from that.
But you had it was a career for you. At one point, you paid for school.
I sang in the Pacific Chorale.
Yeah.
And when I was in college, I made a reasonable amount of money by singing.
Yeah. I mean, that's remarkable. You really, truly are a Renaissance man.
No.
You've got a lot going on in that brain there. Got the scientific side and the art, the creativity. I think it's important probably for scientists to have that ability to be creative. So. I think it's very important. So, it's that outside of the box thinking that I think leads us to these breakthroughs that you've had.
I may have mentioned to you that I played with a neuroscience group called the Synaptic Plasticity Band.
Oh, sweet.
Which was from neuroscientists from University of Illinois, a college in Virginia, and Northwestern University. And we played together whenever there was a scientific meeting of some kind. Throughout the year, we would play jazz at that.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense to me. Something else that's interesting, you have not had the easiest life. For anybody that thinks that getting to where Dr. McGaugh is today, this was not easy. And it's started out not easy. You were bedridden at 7 years old for a year with a disease that
brucellosis.
I've never heard of this. Is it something that people still get?
All of the what are the animals in hold this for a second. The bison. All of the bison in a state park. I mean, in a national park in Wyoming.
They have this disease.
Yeah. What is a national park in
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone.
Yeah.
All of the bison, or most of the bison in Yellowstone, have that.
Did you get it from a bison?
No, it comes with raw milk. That's one reason that milk is pasteurized, because this is a disease that is born by raw milk. And so I probably got it by drinking raw milk when I was young.
Is it viral, or is it a bacteria?
Bacterial.
It's a bacteria. So, okay. So you were able to get, they were able to find an antibiotic to treat this when you were young.
It was invented, the treatment was invented in the 1930s, and I guess I was one of the early people who happened to get that. It was available just before penicillin. It was a miracle drug that appeared just before penicillin. And I got a shot of that, and I was back in school in 2 weeks after I got that.
After a year
and I'd been in bed for a year.
A year in bed, and you were told at 7 years old that you may spend the rest of your life bedridden because of this.
That I was going to, not that I may.
Yeah, that there was no cure, and that was it. So, and then of all the synchronicities, the pediatrician that treated you was doing the trials on this drug.
Yes.
Which is incredible. I mean, if you think of that, I mean, you weren't in like a metropolitan area either. I mean, you were in a border town with Mexico. A little tiny
border town.
In Arizona.
A little hick town in Arizona.
I mean, that's kind of astounding if we want to talk about synchronicities that got you to where you are today. Yeah. And not only that, but you happened to mention to me that when you first started working, you had a fellowship, a 2-year fellowship in Rome with the doctor that invented that drug.
Yes. Yes.
That is also quite synchronicitous. Yeah. That's very, very strange.
Nobel laureate.
Wow. So we don't have all day to talk about all of the research and all the things that you discovered. And even if we did, probably most people wouldn't understand the significance of it because it's science. And we have to dumb this down for people like me that aren't scientists. After you lost your father when you were young. You were 9 years old, you said, when your father passed. Yeah. So that's a trauma for a young person to lose their father. And then your mother wasn't the most supportive when it came to getting you through college. No. So you had to work to get yourself through school. And a lot of people give up when they have to do something hard when they're also going to school, learning things that are hard. Like never
crossed my mind.
Yeah. See, that's the difference between you and you know, the rest of us is that you didn't give up, and it's an inspiring story that regardless of these traumas that you experienced, you kept with it, and because of that, we have learned so much from your research, and it's helped us a lot to move forward, and it will probably be the foundation of what becomes the solution to the aging brain. So that's these are huge things, and I'm so appreciative of people like you and people like you. You've received numerous awards, including the Distinguished Scientific Contribution Award from the American Psychological Association, the Grawemeyer Award for Psychology. What do these honors mean to you? Like, how important? Most of us don't even know what that means. Are they important to you?
Yeah, they're validating.
Okay.
They're validating. They say that the world in which I live recognized my work as being important.
Your colleagues were able to say this is significant work.
Yeah. Somebody thought that I was important.
They got it. Somebody got the significance of what you were doing. There's a building at UC Irvine right here in my little town here, McGaugh Hall. I wonder who that's named after. This gentleman right here, Dr. McGaugh. It was named in your honor. It's the only building in the UC system that is named after a professor who did not pay for the building. Is that true?
And who's alive.
I
think.
Yeah. You're the only living professor with a building named after them.
I think that's true.
I think that's true, too.
One could look it up.
We're going to look that up, but I believe that's to be the case. Yeah. And that's quite interesting. But, we did have the first neurobiology and behavior department in the world right here in Irvine, at UC Irvine. You've mentored many students. You've published over 550 research articles, reviews, and books. The most significant contribution to the field of neuroscience, what do you think that is? Of all of that research you did, is it that one aha moment you had?
Yeah, I think so.
That was it.
I think so.
That was the biggest contribution. Yeah. And is that what you're the most proud of?
Yeah.
Is that,
everything else followed from that.
Yeah.
But, that was the insight.
Yeah. How do you want your work to be remembered?
Well, I hope it's seen as a sort of a stepping stone in a way, so that people can say, yes, this is solid information, and we need to incorporate in our thinking as we learn more. That's the way I look at it. And one of my very good friends at Stanford University, he and I were talking about this very issue, how to want to be remembered. And he was Welsh, and he called me Jimmy me lad. He called me Jimmy me lad, and he said, sooner or later, he said, all of our work gets covered over by the great sludge of history. And I think that's probably true. And I think what I would like to have happen is not that people remember me and my name, but they will learn from the work that I have done and let it influence subsequent research that leads to further understanding. That's my perspective on it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Some of your findings suggested that memory is far more malleable than we previously thought. What are the ethical implications of this? Like, do you believe that to be true? Do you believe eyewitness accounts?
It's not that the memory is malleable, that we can get people to believe that their memory is malleable, so that with the right kind of persuasion, let's say, I run into you 3 years from now, right? And it's very important for you at that time to be able to remember exactly when we met, because there's a legal issue involved in it. And I say, well, I know it was spring. And I remember the flowers that I saw, and I remember what the weather was like. And do you remember that? And you say, well, I'm not sure. I thought it was fall. Oh, no, I know it is. And then I make the argument again. And if I make the right kind of arguments, you might become persuaded that it was in spring rather than the fall.
So I can change your memory.
You may come to believe it. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean your memory was changed.
Yeah, but you change your belief.
That's your belief.
You can change your belief, your interpretation of a memory.
And that's very important, because I was just a consultant on a case about a woman who is charged and is in prison for killing 2 of her children and wounding a daughter with a head injury. And she was convicted on the basis of her daughter saying that she remembered the killing. However, her daughter didn't remember that until she was worked with by a clinical psychologist for several months, asking her every day, can you remember yet that your mother killed you? Can you remember yet when it was and how it is that your mother killed you? And for weeks the child said, I have no memory, I don't remember anything. And then finally the child said, oh yes, I remember. Do you think she really remembered? That's
for a jury to decide.
That's right.
Yeah. I know that this has been a problem, and as a lawyer, I can say that, it's something that we worry about, that, that memories you can remember things because somebody, like a psychologist, somebody who's in that position can say, hey, let's talk about your past life. And
this psychologist met its match, because I didn't in my assessment, which I filed, I didn't say the child either remembered or not remembered. I said, look at the evidence indicating that people have serious head injury, never remember again, and look at the evidence that the clinical psychologist repeatedly tried to get the child to remember. Go figure.
Yeah. So if someone says that they don't remember, they don't remember. There's not going to be an ability for them to somehow remember it down the road.
No, this child psychologist, by berating this child day after day, we finally got the child to say, okay, I remember.
Yeah, what do you want me to say?
No.
You've mentioned that memory is essential for our sense of identity in your work. Can you explain that connection?
Well, who are we? Who are you?
Well, it's whoever my parents told me I was when I was born.
Really? You don't think you've learned anything more about who you are?
I think so, but I think that those early memories of being told this is your family, this is our religion, this is, where we're from, I've relied on that, and it has been the foundation of everything I
And
know
tho-
about
And
myself.
those are all memories.
They are.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we are our memories.
We are, aren't
And
we?
that's it.
So when you lose your memory, are you gone?
Yes.
So what about if you start losing your memory? Are you a little bit there still?
No, then you're on your way out.
You're on your way out. Okay. Wow. So once those memories start to go, you can't be you anymore. You can't. That's it. Are we just computers? Are we biological computers?
That's
Hard question.
probably.
Probably. I know. I've come to that conclusion myself, not as a
Probably.
researcher.
But that's how important memory is. That's how important it is, because that's who we are. Memories
Yeah.
are who we are. It's a accumulation of knowledge about ourselves that goes on throughout life. All of our skills, those are memories. Our language. Think of the language we speak. A common language. We may speak some other languages as well. Those are memories also. We drive cars, or whatever. We eat a certain way, and so on. I remember a friend of mine went to, this was many years ago when we didn't travel very much, before airlines went across the airplane a lot, or across the ocean a lot, and he was in Germany. From here, it is in Germany, and he was eating. And he would eat the way we do now. You have a knife here and the knife and a fork, and you work this way. And that's not the way they eat in Germany. And so the waitress came over, and she thought he was handicapped because he was eating in such a strange way. And so she wanted to help him with his eating because she thought he was handicapped.
Oh, wow.
No, that's a skill that he learned really unconsciously. You don't know how he learned how to handle a knife and a fork, and the knife is on this hand and the fork is on this. It's not that way in Europe, It's
Yeah,
the
they
other
do
way
it
around.
differently there.
So that's what we are. We know how to do that. We know how to drive. We know how to talk. We know how to use the language, and so on. So we're just a bundle of our memories that are all wrapped together. That's us.
It's fascinating. What about, is there a point in our evolution where we started to have memories in terms of, the earliest forms of life on this planet, blue-green algae, or whatever it might have been? When did memory begin?
As far as I know, every animal on this kingdom has memories.
Everything. A bee? A honeybee?
Oh, definitely honeybees. I mean, there's a whole story on that. The honeybee goes out and gets the nectar, and he comes back and does a dance on the hive, and that communicates to the other bees about where the good stuff is, and they go on out exactly according to the instructions that is written in the type of dance that it does.
Wow. So that's a language that they
That's
speak.
a language of the bees, and the guy who did that won the Nobel Prize for discovering that bees have language, and they communicate it, and that's how they work. So off the bees go to, they say, oh, it's 3 degrees north of this, and turn on there, and you'll find the flowers out there that are rich in nectar. And off the bees go, and that's exactly where they go.
What about like the innate things that we have within us, the innate ability that we have? Is that considered a form of memory? And is it a memory from our ancestors?
I suppose you could call that an ancestral memory, but it won't get you very far. That is, we have an innate ability to learn how to talk, for example, but it's not useful unless you use it.
Right.
It's sitting there.
It didn't help the caveman much.
Until you do something about it. So, look, we are our memories. That's who we are. That's it.
That's it, people. That's coming from the expert on memory, Dr. McGaugh.
We can use it, but the basic thing is we've got memories.
We do.
I can feel a song coming on.
By Barbra Streisand?
I've got memories. You've got memories.
So what do you think your real legacy is?
Okay, my real legacy is not the experimental findings. It's not the name on a building. It's my students. And I have had lots of them, and they're all over the world, and they still maintain contact with me. That's what I think is my legacy.
Yeah, that speaks volumes. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's why people become professors, because they want to be able to influence the next generation. and leave a real mark on this world. Thank you.
They contact me on all my birthdays, and just a couple of years ago, a lot of them flew in on my birthday, and we had a party, and when I travel, I see them, and she knows them. Go to Europe, and they're always there to host us and really take care of us. That's a real legacy.
I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah. And then I have grandchildren, and I have great grandchildren. I mean, scientific, and there are even online programs that. And they do it for everybody, I think, but mine shows me, and then it expands like this. And there's a group over here, and it's all the
the family tree of scientists.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but there are programs for doing that, and you can see all the connections and
how your research has influenced other research.
That's important to me. Nobody ever sees that, but that's what's important to me is the connections with my former students, and they're.
Yeah, and you're still working too. You're still reading papers and.
I'm retired, but I still do some work. I'm not dead yet.
That's why your brain is still working, because you keep using it.
A little bit.
Yeah, keep using that brain.
Like that.
That's right.
When I was at the University of Oregon, a student came to me from the honors college, and they said they wanted me to come and talk because they're debating Freud versus Skinner, and they wanted my view on the Freud versus Skinner. Yeah. And so I agreed to talk, and I went over and I told them they were both nonsense, so I wondered why they were even having the argument. I mean, their ideas were both useless and wrong, and so why are they having an honors college that's focusing on that? Well, he joined my laboratory then, as an undergraduate student, did his honors thesis with me. He went to UCLA, and then he went to the University of Illinois and was elected to the National Academy of Sciences.
Wow.
Which is the highest honor short of the Nobel Prize that a scientist can get.
Don't you have that honor
also?
Yes,
I have that. But he got it first.
Wow.
He was elected first.
Wow.
William Greenough. And that's something, you see that. Here's a kid working in humanities who essentially I drafted away from humanities because I told him what they were doing was nonsense. And
so you're not a fan of like cognitive behavioral therapy?
The cognitive behavioral therapy, I'm not against that.
You're not against it?
No. Yeah.
But Skinner, you're not a fan.
Oh, but that kind, I think that's nonsense.
Yeah.
Skinner is not. But the cognitive behavioral therapy that's involving really serious discussion,
you're a fan.
I think that's.
It's been proven it does work.
Yeah,
it's possible.
I don't.
But Freud, meh, not so much. Psychoanalysis isn't the answer.
I think it is absolute nonsense.
Thank you for that. Okay, you heard it here.
That's not recorded, I hope.
It was, but we won't use it if you don't want us to. Remember, you get the final say. It's up to you what you want published. This is for your legacy.
In the slums of old Vienna, Freud was born across the sea with an overcharged libido that he finally set free. The impulse of his urges changed humanity. And so on.
Yeah, the truth comes marching
we
on.
used to put on a musical comedy when I was a graduate student. Every year in the spring, we'd put on a musical comedy, and we would parody all of the so-called leaders of psychiatry and psychology in song. So we made fun of Skinner, we made fun of Freud, we made fun of all of these people who claimed to have big and complete theories, and they were, of course, nonsense. Much too complicated to have a unified theory. It's just much too complicated.
Right now, maybe someday?
Not in my lifetime, no.
No. Yeah, but maybe with quantum computing.
A piece of this, a piece of that, begin to put this together, we understand a little bit more. We didn't talk about PTSD, but...
Tell me about PTSD.
All right. I was minding my own business a number of years ago, and I got a call from a psychiatrist at Harvard who said he'd been reading my papers and he thought that my work had some implications for treatment for PTSD. And so he said we should get together, and I said, fine, I'll look at my calendar. He said, no, I'm coming tomorrow. I already have my ticket. He was flying from Harvard to come out and meet with me. And he said, according to your findings, when something is very emotionally arousing, if you can block the brain shortly after that, you prevent the memory from developing, which means that it should be possible to prevent PTSD by treating human subjects some way immediately out or shortly after they've had a traumatic experience. So we talked about it, and he designed an experiment then in which he had nurses stationed at all of the major hospitals in Boston, and when the patients came who had been injured or raped or fallen or something like that, some of them would sign a document that they said that they serve as a subject, and half of them were given a substance which blocks the action of adrenaline, a beta blocker.
Oh, I used one of these after my son was killed.
Pardon?
They gave me beta blocker.
Did they?
Yes, and they told me to use it liberally.
We'll come back to that in a moment. They gave them a beta blocker, or they gave them a placebo, and then they checked it in 2 months later for signs of PTSD. And the subjects that had the beta blockers had many fewer signs of PTSD. But remember, we're talking about the prevention of the development of PTSD by getting a beta blocker in as quickly as possible after the event to prevent or to dampen the consolidation of the experience.
Yeah.
So I was at this President's Commission on Science, and I told them about that. And they got very upset about it because they said, why would you want to change human nature that is evil, really, to try to change human nature by manipulating the brain in that way? People who are injured need to benefit from their injuries in order to experience. And I thought, people who have severe trauma want to benefit from the trauma? And they actually wrote a book on it. And I am the poster child of evil in that book, simply because I said, this is the way the brain works. And the psychiatrist then developed this technique for the prevention of PTSD, shown experimentally. But it's in practice, it can't be done because you're not going to have people stationed at hospitals to give you beta blockers after people have horrendous experiences. So that was my little interaction on PTSD.
Interesting. So people that take, like some people take beta blockers for migraines. I was already taking them every day for a migraine. And so when it happened, I asked the doctor about that. Should I continue to take this? They said, oh yeah, this is a great drug for PTSD. I mean, I still developed it, but given what I went through, that wasn't that surprising.
It's a great drug for preventing the development of PTSD.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. That's what I remember. They told me that year, that I was lucky I had been taking it. It could have been, my PTSD could have been a lot worse. And
I discovered that with my colleague at Harvard.
At Harvard?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting because the doctor that told me to use it went to UCI. Yeah, a fairly new graduate too. But that was many years ago. But yeah, so there is a lot there. You've got your hand in everything. It seems, and we could keep going because I have I've got a list of so many more things. You want to keep going?
He's tired of me, I can tell.
No, he's not. But we have had a long day though. But no, I don't think so. Thank you for making a memory with me. I'll never forget this meeting. Thank you so much, Dr. Jim McGaugh.
Thank you for having me.
Great having you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Blaze It Forward is a campaign my family started in 2018 after our son Blaze was murdered. Blaze It Forward provides the inspiration to thousands of people to repair the world with intentional acts of kindness. If you would like to learn more about Blaze and how you can make a difference, check out www.blazebernstein.org or join our Facebook group at #BlazeItForward. You can also check out my website for this podcast at www.PeppTalksWithJeanne.com. There you can follow along with my podcasting adventures and learn more about my fascinating guests and their passion projects. I would like to thank all of the volunteers who help make my philanthropic endeavors a reality. Today that includes my producer, Eli Moskowitz, all of the volunteer crew members who join us, and a special thank you to my son, Jay Bernstein, for the original theme song you hear at the beginning and ending of each show. This has been another episode of Pep Talks with Jeanne. Until next time, keep on making this world a better place.